Back in patch 1.4, I solo cleared the game with a Trauma Stack Bladedancer Executioner build. I have more than min-maxed that several times since that point, and we are now entering patch 1.6 and things have been reworked and things have changed. So I'm actually going to cover two variants of a trauma build, which is a Death World Bladedancer Executioner, and it uses Wounded Beast and Facing the End to stack traumas into stats, which is then really well used by Executioner because you don't require toughness for your health and you can turn your Medicae into armor and health, which is both stacked by the trauma build on a Bladedancer. I wouldn't really recommend this for other setups because it just doesn't do what it does, and this is primarily going to be used by a Psyker because that's how you use all that extra willpower. There are many ways that this build can scale that, and we will go over some of them, but I think it's going to be important that we cover some basics. In this video, I'll also be comparing Orchestrate Flame to the Psy Capacitor. Now, I've said that Psy Capacitor is a direct downgrade from Orchestrate Flame, which in my opinion makes it the worst augment in the game, because no matter what build you put on, something else does the same job better. On a Bladedancer Executioner, then you will have Orchestrate Flame will actually outperform the Psy Capacitor as it does more damage. On a Master Tactician build, well, this Cerebral Inverter MK Tactician does way more for a Bladedancer there, and even if you're looking to go into a Warrior, losing access to all those buffs is just not going to do more. And again, you're going to be looking to say that you could even stack on an Assassin build Sword of Faith more than the Psy Capacitor can outperform. So no matter what, it always does less. But despite that, that's not even the reason why I say it's the worst one. It's the loss of utility from your powers. Powers on a Psyker is why they're just overpowered. So going 120 hours before you're online when you get access to Psy Capacitor in Act 3 around the 60 to 80 hour mark, and then around the 80 to 120 hour mark when you get Psy Focus, yeah, you've got a long time before that build's online. Unless you're constantly respecking like you're playing Baldur's Gate 3, then you're not really going to have a playable build all that time. And if you're already using Pyromancy to that point, why would you just downgrade your damage? Some people will argue for Psychic Awakening, but again, you still need to get to level 55 because you have to take all of those talents for actually increasing it. And even if you say Dogmatic with the Helm, again, it's, well, this is still weaker than if you hadn't gone this route, and it also locks you to a playstyle. So I'm not going to spend too much time fighting strawmen here. Let's talk about some traumas. As always, this video will be sponsored by Adam. Traumas for Facing the End and Wounded Beast cap out at 4. However, there are 6 possible traumas. Ones that you definitely want to avoid are probably neurological shock, though it isn't the worst. Concussion you'd probably also want to avoid because of the loss of perception, and even getting the broken ribs can be a pretty big one because losing the action point, as well as the same for crippled legs because losing movement points. However, you do have workarounds for all of them, and honestly, I don't actually stack traumas that much. I like the passive buffs that you get if you happen to accidentally pick them up, but I don't go out of my way to stack them on purpose, mostly because augments are really powerful, and I'd much rather have access to the augments, and I'd rather just, if I'm using Blood Oath too much and I pick up an injury or trauma, that turns into a positive rather than just a flat-out negative. I just like that as a safety net. But yes, some of these can be quite crippling, literally. So do pay attention to what they do and what they add, and you can have, like I said, 4 and an injury, and they will all stack. But if you go into 5 traumas, then they won't stack. One person tried claiming that the Executioner build was unplayable because you could get 5 or 6 traumas, but that is just absolute hogwash. Also, I'm going to tell you a little secret about this trauma build, and Invigorating Resolve Malpine Shroud is not the best slot for it. Just stacking buffs to get really high resolve isn't actually the best way that you can use that. We're going to go over that later in the video, but let's start looking at some things in combat. Now, as we can see here, I have concussion, I have crippled arm, and I have an old injury. So I am getting a lot of skills coming in here. Well, a lot of buffs to my weapon skill, for instance. So it's at 69. Nice. My agility at 118 because of all this, and even my willpower at 75. If I switch to my staff, that becomes 85, which means we are in prime territory to use things like the Noble Sword, so it's going to get a 14 damage base increase after I DFA, but I've also got Veil Render here. Veil Render is going to do some extra damage based on my Psy rating, and if you'd taken Blade of Light, well, that's also going to play in a little hand there, and because of Shimmering Emulsion, we do progress Psy rating a little bit sooner. I do have the Von Valancius Cloak on as well, and that should be giving me benefits, but it doesn't appear to be. Fun little glitches. I would need to take that off and put that back on. But if we go into this combat, naturally I'm going to have an exceptionally high roll, so I am going to be going first. Now, with this build, we want to take out packs of enemies, and we can very easily actually use our Psych powers for this. So if we think we can guarantee a kill, now because this does count as a melee attack, we can actually tag someone with Blood Oath, which will not only give us movement, but if we get a kill, it will actually refund an attack economy. So we heal up because of that, and yes, we still have our attack action. So this is another reason why actually using it with the Psy powers is so exceedingly strong. So for now, I'm going to jump into combat. If I have to come back because of acrobatic archery, I will kill this fat guard here. We're going to get ourselves into position, and again, if we come back, we'll kill this guy because of our DFA. So yes, anyone that does happen to survive some jumps, having some other places where you can jump to is also pretty useful. So most of them have taken a good amount of damage, but not everyone has been killed. But if I start with getting Revenge Attack, and then I will go back with the Acrobatic Archery. This is one of the reasons why I like Acrobatic Archery so much. You can actually spec out of this in Tier 2 when you start one-turning, because you might not want it as much. But it is such an exceptionally good thing. You can still use it just like this when it comes to other parts of gameplay here. And if I get myself into position, I'm going to be able to obviously DFA in, and I still also have access to my blade dance. So with these helpful chaps all here, I'm actually going to pop a stim just so I can blade dance. Overextending, and I probably wouldn't use the stim like this normally, but well, I just wanted to show it off, because that gives us access to 2 more DFAs. And 1 more Vanguard down there, which I'm not going to be able to solo push and finish now. But you can see sort of just how well this sort of build does. If we have a look at just sort of the early archetype setups here. So, yeah, Blade Dance is going to be our multi-attack ability. All of this will be on the spreadsheet, by the way, so you don't need to take notes at this point in the video or even pause and keep coming back. If you want to just follow the build, do check below, but I'm going to explain a few things. Now, the main thing that sets up the combination that we're using here is Death Warden. Blade Dancer's Medicae is now determined by weapon skill instead of intelligence if their weapon skill is higher. The Blade Dancer deals 12% critical damage and can use medikits as if having their skill advancement roll the corresponding talent. This is going to play directly into Executioner, because this will become health and armor as well as debuff checks and all sorts of wonderful little things. Reason we take this first is there isn't a better slot to take on the progression of this build, because the other benefits come once we get other upgrades. So Death Warden here on Blade Dancer is going to be the most opportune. Going to want to start increasing our Psych Minoris for our ranged attacks from both our staff and from our ignites for if we need to pick up things from range. Blood Oath is going to be the first ability we want to use. Every second cast of this, if your health is low, you've got to be careful, because once you've taken over 30% damage in a single round, you do risk picking up an injury. Yeah, so again, Blood Rush will allow Blood Oath to generate MP, which will also on kill will recover some wounds, and it will also give us a refunded attack action. We focus on getting our weapon skill up first, because that is going to be our primary one. Now, early on this version of the build, we take Body of Flames. We will take slightly different versions on the Pharaoh one, and I will go over that with the spreadsheets, because it will be hard to show both of them in game. Death Waltz Upgrade 2 is going to be the most important one to get first, because we get 4 additional charges of death from above, and we also get agility bonus to damage. Facing the End will be the first part of sponsoring increasing our stats via injuries and traumas. Acrobatic Archery, like I said, absolutely vital for survival in Act 1, but we can spec out this into Orchestrate Flames for Act 2 once we have a little bit more health, and that whilst I don't like respecking a lot, I feel like this one is so minor that you could just swap the ability around, and if you don't want to, I do have that path available as the default on the spreadsheet. Dance partners, yep, as long as Bladedancer has 2 swords equipped, Bladedancer's weapon skills increase by their agility bonus. Because we increase our agility so much, this will help keep up our negatives that we see to coming into weapon skills as we pick up those hand injuries. Skill-wise, I taken demolitions because obviously we're going to have really high agility, and Medicaid is going to be the one that's going to be required. You won't really be able to invest too much in athletics or corrals on this build because of obviously if we walk around traumas. At rank 13 I get Wounded Beast because yeah, it comes better for me. I find Body of Flames is actually really useful, having that extra armor against enemy damage. So it gives you another 12 against enemy laser fire or energy damage, so Lad's Melter, which is going to be all the enemies in it. So yeah, boosting your armor by 12% is 12% damage reduction, so it does help. I pick up crowds though, just because there's nothing else to go on there, and I'll show what these last ones are that we go into here, but it's mostly going to be sweeping motions because 1 AP area attacks is just really good for building up death from above, and I think I actually take strength here, or even willpower, because there's nothing else we can really take on this, but we will eventually build into power armor. The second upgrade that I take for Death Waltz, which is exceptionally overpowered, is Death Waltz upgrade 3. Yeah, we decrease enemies' armor and dodge with our attacks, and those penalties stack. Exceptionally overpowered. Now, Act 2 is going to be mostly where the builds start to diverge, even though there is going to be a 1 talent difference in Act 1. Though the gameplay is roughly going to be the same, it's just going to be you have less utility when it comes to using the setup for Warp Reaper, which is going to be the Duelist version. Now, right now, we're going to want to make sure that we keep our party alive, but also try to work out how we can make things die, like with Cinder. And one of the things we want to do is we want to sort of lower his ability to prevent us from attacking him. So we're going to give him some cover reduction here. Then we are going to buff up our companion and try to see what we can do about getting the Pyromancer involved here. So one of the nice little things about being able to buff ourselves as well is we can have pretty decent stats coming in from stacking 2 sources of buff, even without worrying about other buffers coming in here. And because we are a Psyker, having access to some ranged attacks is quite useful. Though I definitely don't want to accidentally be blasting Abelard here. Though if I could see these allies more, that would be better. So I'm actually going to try and sneak up a little bit. Easy double kill. That's what we like to see. And then I can get a very good blast on these enemies here. And then also move myself safely back to cover. So yep, we hit them. Then I can activate Acrobatic Artistry just to sort of get out of the way. So not bad for a bring it down turn. A lot of these enemies are going to move up and they're going to throw fire at us, but that means we're going to be sort of ready to go for the next turns. And we also have the other buffs coming in from Frontline and Combat Locust here. Now I am going to assume that these guys are going to move up, so I'm going to set up some zones ready for that. Oh yes, they do love their arc grenades, don't they? Though ideally being able to jump from here means that we could get more enemies when we come back. Now, I have picked up Broken Ribs, which is very unfortunate because that directly impacts our EP, but means our other buffs are going to be higher. So again, don't copy me overextending like I'm going to here. But one of the reasons why I'm doing that is I also want to show off more of some of these buffs. Ah, missed. So all of those are going to come in with some debuffs here, especially with having that Blade Dance put in on him. We are going to use some of these DFAs as well. Oh yeah, Cinder's going to be an absolute breeze. Then we're going to get ourselves on home nice and safe. I'm also going to activate Where It Hurts, so if he does fail a check here, he should explode. Oh, that one missed. Get another chance. Nice. Though we missed this chap here. But we still have an AP to come back and buff our blood. So I'm going to skip ahead to the DLC 1 Crypt fight, and we are trauma maxing for it. We have 4 traumas on at the moment, and the ones that we've got are the 2 head ones and 2 hand ones. I've tried to avoid getting the chest and leg ones. You can either use the trauma kits, which you can get to remove ones that you don't like, or you can just sort of try to just not stack them anyway, which is the Trudion's med kit. Highly recommend getting that. On this build, I'm using Swashbuckler Cloak because this is the Pyromancer version. This critical damage will apply to the Pyromancer Cloak. I'm also using the Anatomist Amulet. I don't know if this one does build up my self-burn. If it doesn't, I probably should be using... what do we have on Cassia? Nope. I think I've got the Orchestrate one over on Heinrich's, but the Daemon tool from Act 1 is also going to be a very good option here. I probably should have prepared that one. And I've just got the basic Ancient Force Sword and the Veil Render, still using the Charge Staff from Act 1, but the Inertia Boots is going to be one of the keys to finishing this, and also the Spirit Drake to really buff ourselves up. I've also set myself up with the Arm of Hidden Promise, so we are going to show off what we're going to do here. Now, one thing I am going to do is I am going to drop the armor here because we want to be able to self-buff ourselves without killing ourselves too much. And yeah, let's go all out on the buff. And normally, again, I know for showcases I shouldn't be showing myself abusing just so much of the AP sort of stuff here, but you do get a lot to spend here and there. So again, I just wanted to show off kind of what you can really be doing with this. So if I try and stack up a bunch of enemies as well, so we can get some of those early kills. And there's a good chance that these guys will definitely not survive these initial hits, and we will hopefully be able to generate a finest hour. So I'm going to give a turn to my guy. Now, because we have received some buffs coming in here, yeah, that is going to look pretty nice. We can then also stack on our Iron Arm. Now, you could build into Warp Surge, but I'm not doing that at the moment. So one thing I am going to do is we are going to buff ourselves up. So I am going to switch to my staff so we've got more willpower. I'm then going to activate my Orchestrate properties, as well as pop it on Inflame. Now, here's where some of the fun begins with the fact that we also have access to these galvanization augments. Oh. Okay, they died very easily, and that's given us a lot of movement. So I'm going to pop on this Crimson Haze. Now. We can use the stim as well. We also have Scorchers. So Scorchers will be able to refund us one attack action here. So I am going to use the Scorcher. Then when I mark a target with Blood Oath, if we kill them both, Scorcher will obviously proc twice. And yeah, the fire damage is outdoing our regular damage at the moment, which is really, really nice. We have also received a free attack. So if I can position myself correctly for Firestorm, I might be able to get a bunch of these guys. So if I go here, he's still in the Firestorm. So we can at least hit both these guys. And then obviously with Where It Hurts, yeah, we can do quite a bit with Firestorm. So we'll pop that on. Somehow we destroyed the little turret as well. Oh, just so much damage just deleting things as well. Right, so we triggered the next part of the boss here. Things are dying before we're even fully proccing to actually use some of our abilities here. Okay, finally survived a hit, which means we can actually now use part of our Bladedancer abilities. We also have a free attack. Gosh, I probably should be using Veil Render too, because if I get a crit, it will stack up a really big hit for that. Okie dokies. So this is where we're going to want to use our Blade Dance, because it does consume all the MP that we've got from our inertia boots, but it will annihilate the boss completely and utterly. Now, I'm actually going to DFA here and not use it to kill him, because I want to pick up some more DFA charges. So yeah, that guy dead. Now, because the staff attacks count as melee attacks, if we can get good enough hits, we might... you can't crit with this one. That is the one unfortunate part. So I will use this to get some movement, and then I'll recover it as well. But the staff will give us access to some range stacks. Ooh, gotta be careful. Triggered a Perils of the Warp there. Maybe should be sticking to basic powers. But yeah, the damage is just exceedingly strong. Absolutely insane. But yeah, coming back, just wiping out all of these ambush guys. And how many DFAs do I still have? Because I'm pretty sure if I kill from the fire, it will generate DFA. So yeah, I've still got 7 more of them. So yeah, we're going to solo clear this encounter easily. And that's just from Cassia buffs. And we're on Bring It Down. We're on Bring It Down. We're not using Finest Hour. We haven't stacked 5 buffers. That's how strong this build is. We could actually still probably do it with Psy Capacitor build, but we wouldn't have access to easy generating it. And what's funny is you guys didn't even get a chance to see that I actually had the Cerebral Inverter on there. So if anything doesn't die, I actually do shoot it with my little laser eye for my DFAs as well as my melees, but everything was too busy dying. So on my build sheet, you will find Revan's Pyromancer, and wow, I misspelled Orchestrate here, so... Orchestrate Flame. So yes, you will see the Pyromancer. It starts as a Death World Sanctioned Psy Pyromancer. It takes in Weapon Skill, Agility, and Perception, and this is an updated version of my old Fire Tsunami build, and then that goes back to a different build before that. But anyway, so like I said, we increased Medicaid because that's going to tie into everything. Death Warden will work with Dance Partners, which feeds back into Death Warden, which feeds into Facing the End, which feeds into Dance Partners, which feeds into Death Warden, which feeds into Wounded Beast, then feeds into Dance Partners and Facing the End, which feeds into Death Warden, which then feeds into Anatomy Expert, and you can even take Perfect Anatomy on this build. Now, I don't take Perfect Anatomy build because I'm not trying to play solo. If you did want to stack your arm more, you could take Perfect Anatomy, and when you're going to use your Orchestrate Flame, like I said, I don't use it in Act 1 because Activate Artistry is just too good to keep me alive, especially with the debuff that you get from using Death from Above. And if I am going to use it, I'll respec. It is really nice to have Firestorm on this build, so that's kind of why I do like to switch them around. But even if you don't have Firestorm, you just don't need it. Captive Audience is going to be absolutely fantastic with Ground Performance as an upgrade for your Blade Dance. No boss in the game will survive. Reckless Abandon is exceptionally good to get those temporary HP. Now, if you really wanted to, you could take Enfeeble and Warp Speed, so you could further buff this, or you can just take Reckless Abandon and then get Molten Beam. If you weren't taking Firestorm earlier, level 53 is another option, but at that point it is fairly late on. At level 38, I do take Power Armor Efficiency. This is so in Act 3 you have access to the Adherent of Mankind, and in Act 4 so you have access to Sanguine Judgment. Exceptionally powerful. Just the same as Calculated Resolve, will keep stacking up your Resolve, so you will be able to get a lot out of that. And Blade of Light, yeah, just making sure you have Shimmering Emulsion and all of that building into it is going to be really good. So you will see some really nice increases. And things like Fire Within will proc up, Relentless Blaze will give you extra Psy rating, you'll get crits coming in for Sparks and Grey Flame on your melee. And the more you stack your weapon skill, the more likely you are to get those crits. I move Soul of Distress till level 33, and this is because it's only really bosses that you need to worry about that. If you really wanted to drop that talent for lower difficulties, you probably could. But if we compare this to another build that I have on here, this is the Warp Reaper. So this is a version that is based on Psy Capacitor, and it only uses passives, which all build into the gameplay. So very much similar to before, but instead of Body of Flames, we have Fire Within earlier, so that way it can proc more. We also don't get into any of the Psyker skills, so we take Pain Resonance, which is a free extra attack, basically, so it can be very good. We also get Reckless Abandon earlier, which is exceptionally good. If you are using this with Invigorating Resolve and Malpian Traveler Party, yeah, this will go really hard. This does much better in Act 2 using Invigorating Resolve and Malpian Resolve, because obviously, unless you're trauma stacked. As you get into Act 3, then yes, you are also going to get Power Arm Efficiency. We do get the Psy Capacitor, and then you're going to want to start thinking about being able to stack that. So Grimoire of the Void will stack that very nicely, and so will the Psy Focus. If we actually look at the items here, I do make note of them. So by the end, you're going to be wanting to build towards Dogmatic 5 with Eyes of Joyce, Sanguine Judgment, Swashbuckler's Cloak, Psy Focus, then either Warp Surge Brooch if you're going solo, or Grimoire of the Void if playing party. Hand of Offense will be a good one. Hand of Evodius is very good for just getting extra bleed crits and stuff like getting the focal emitters in there, and obviously the neural system graphs and Psy Capacitor. Yeah, it's going to be pretty helpful. Optional to pick up Pneumatic Assault Grapple for MK Warrior as well as the Skull Crushers, but these are things that can give you extra attack, so I like them early on. And then if we compare that to the start of my actual Pyromancer, then yes, like I said, so you can use Malpian Shroud and Invigorating Resolve, but I kind of like Swashbuckler's Cloak and Anatomus's Amulet. You could also change this to be the next slot for the Demon Tool, and that will also work very nicely going across here. But in the end game, the Snarmist Scarf and the Swashbuckler's Cloak will actually do the most for you. Hand of Offense and Spirit Drape are just going to be exceptionally good. Again, those Inertia Boots on both builds, yeah, just free movement. Same with having Eyes of Joyce that really work into it. And pretty much the same when it comes to the optical insertions down here. You'll see that these do quite a lot. So as I said, I don't think for an Orchestrate build that it's best to use Malpian Shroud and Invigorating Resolve, especially if you're stacking traumas. Now at the moment I'm going to go into an encounter without stacking traumas, but I am just talking about options here. I'm going to use Demon Tool because, yeah, it will increase my burning and then therefore increase my Orchestrate, and obviously the critical damage from Swashbuckler's Cloak will apply there. So we're going to go do things. I'm still using the Charge Staff, mostly because the stuff that you get here is not really the beast, so it increases its damage based on burning enemies, but the thing is we're going to kill everything before it can burn. It's not like the old Carnival where you set the whole map on fire, but yeah, we're going to be doing some nasty things here. So we've got Spirit Drape on there, we've got Hand of Offense, we've got the Hand of Evolius from Act 2, Swashbuckler's Cloak still, Inertia Boots, and yeah, the Tessarian Mask. So this is going to be an Act 3 show off, and then we'll show off a little bit of the Psy Capacitor. So I'm going to go all in on the buffs here. I'm not going to worry too much about anything else. At this point, the game is pretty easy for us to solo through. We don't even need to stack these guys up because we're going to be using our old Warp Strike that's coming in from our Skull Crushers. You could be using the Pneumo items, like I said, but I'm not here. But there's no reason not to. Perfectly usable option. Right, so we're going to... might want to also just add on Killzone Stratagem. It's free, why not? It's not going to exactly affect the showcase here. Now, as I was saying, we want to get into the correct range for this, so we will have everyone in there. And we are going to buff ourselves up. Now, we get Iron Arm for free. Then we can apply Ignite to ourselves. We can apply Orchestrate Flames. Now, we're not going to use Piercing Resolution because we'll ignore our own armor with Inflame. Though we could very well activate that now, but not to worry about that too much. So I'm actually going to activate Captive Audience. I'm going to mark one of these guys with Blood Oath. The reason for that is, so when we galvanize, I was hoping we would kill him, but we didn't. Well then. Easy enemy deletion. Then, from there, what we will do is we will go back to Cassia, and we will give ourselves a full-on Finest Hour. Now, because our Psy rating has increased, or it should do because of Relentless Blaze, yep, we can actually reapply our iron arm. I'm going to reapply Inflame because that's actually going to boost the damage that we're seeing on here, and it will also do some damage to these guys. And yeah, now we're pretty tough. So easy person here to get some heal off, and I imagine your mirrors is not gonna like what we're gonna want to do here. So yeah, we jump in, we get our little laser eyes. She dodges, but then that's actually going to boost up our next attack. So that triggers her next phase, though she should have healed there. Will this trigger it, or will she do it? There we go. There's her heal. Obviously, lots and lots and lots of dots. Yeah, she is in a pretty bad way if we look at... yeah, because obviously we've got all that warp burn coming in here, so... We've also then got all the regular burning, we've got bleed stacked on there. And yeah, so we could very easily go for the captive audience and then blade dance, but we would lose a little bit of some of that stuff there. So what I'm actually going to do instead is going to make it so she can't dodge. Tempted to activate where it hurts, really. Yes, easy peasy. Then we can activate Death Waltz, which will boost the damage of everything else on top of that. As you can see, exceptional damages coming in here. And we can even pop down here and see our friends here. Because Crimson Haze does in fact apply to our Orchestrates when they crit. So if I just add on a little bit more movement so we can get a little bit closer, and I will also pop on Crimson Haze so you can see what I'm talking about. We're just going to offensively DFA towards this guy, and you'll see sort of the extra damage when we crit what that Orchestrate's doing. So yeah, we're getting an extra 469 damage because of it. So yeah, a lot of things will actually apply here. So we'll get our base damage powered by Flaming Tool, Daemon Tool, like I said, that increases it as well. So the higher that the veil goes up, the more we'll get out of that. Also, things like Master of Torch will apply all-encompassing agony. So as you pick those up, you will start seeing other boosts coming in. We can also freely use stuff like our Ignites, and we can even use like our Where It Hurts and Firestorms to like multi-proc those. Well, though I thought it would, that should have triple procced, it didn't. Oh well, he's still going to die. But yes, that 469 damage is what this setup kind of adds to that, and you can stack that up more if you go into later rounds. It's just that, yeah, obviously we didn't need to. And then obviously everything else is getting boosted by Inflame, especially all the flame critical hits. A lot of how much damage this build can do, we don't really get to see because everything dies, but like our actual burning dots, well, because they come in because of Inflame, yeah, huge boost. Absolutely huge boost coming to all of those dots. So those blade dancers, and if you do a blade dance with captive audience, slowing enemy armor, yeah, you do a lot. But let's go and compare it to the Psy Capacitor. So if we swap over, things are very similar because these are very similar setups, though we've changed Spirit Drape to Grimoire of the Void. Now, one thing to keep in notice of is this will do 2 times willpower extra damage. Now, if we are stacking our traumas, this will mean we have much higher willpower, so we'll actually be getting a lot more out of it. It means buffs will actually directly increase what the Psy Capacitor does here, and this will time some of our damage into an extra base damage that then comes off. So we'll show off what that looks like here, and you'll see that the playstyle is going to be slightly different, especially because we're not going to be sort of self-harming to buff up. So I'm going to do the exact same buffs as before from Cassia here, and we don't have to really worry about any self-damage. So this time we got Overwhelming Stratagem. So the difference is here that we don't really need anything to self-buff us, except we can use Reckless Abandon, and so we will use that because we get it a little bit earlier on this build. That is going to be the advantage here. We're going to also Galvanize as we did before. But as you can see, the damage that we're not getting here is nowhere near close to that 400 number that we had before. Could continue to keep killing these things as well, because we do have stuff to use, but we might as well just go into Finest Hour now to get our attack economy up, and then start trying to build that momentum back up again. So now that I've already used my teleport, I could use Crimson Haze. I probably should have used this on the other build, but I forgot. And because we can stack up some more armors and stuff, we could do that now. I think I'm going to use this first to try and heal a little bit. Then I'm going to activate this. But yes, the damage is still going to be exceptionally good. Like warp damage, like I said, it's not going to hit that 400, but it's still something. And of course, this is the same build as it was before. So we're going to get in some really crazy good damage here. I'm even going to hook the boss in. Give her a little hit there. Which should trigger her next phase. So if I pop over here, she should heal an attack. Oh, she tried to run. That was stupid. She wanted to kill my allies. That was stupid. Well, anyway. We can Death Waltz to get the extra damage boost that we had before. But like I said, that warp damage, we're comparing 98 to 461. But this build is very easy to get extra damage to get the kills, so it's going to be other things. And like I said, we're not quite hitting the damage breakpoints that we would like to be clearing as much and as easily as we were with the other build. But it is what it is. But the Psy Capacitor, its main strength is actually going to be coming in when if we're stacking our willpower higher. So when we have trauma, so we stack this more, we will be doing more. And in Act 4, when we get access to the Psy Focus, this does a lot more than it is now. So this isn't it at full power yet. So it does get stronger. If we get in close enough, we can also try to show off a blade dance. Ah, no, you're going to die, so... You, however, now that you're here, yes, we can captive audience and blade dance. And yeah, really, really, really good damage. But yeah, the energy damage is going to come in quite nice, and like I said, the warp damage... It's not the same. Now we need to kind of show it with the Act 4 items. Okay, so we're going to be showing this off with 3 traumas on, and we're going to be doing the Daybreaking Counter in Act 4. So this is going to be the Pyromancer version that's going to go first. As you see, we've upgraded to the Sanguine Judgment. Yes, whether or not you want the helm on is going to be up to you, but the drip is fantastic either way. And yeah, we've got a lot of Psy rating on this setup. And we're going to have even more. So yeah, we've just brought Cass here just for some buffs because we're not even going to pretend we need anything more. Yeah, and our stats going to be very high because of the way the setup works. So yes, as I get these buffs nice and set up, we will start seeing some very fun little damage increases coming in here. Again, we don't need to take the turns on this, and we'll actually just reset that back across. And this is so that we can inflame again. And because of all the extra veil, so yeah, we're going to get a nice plus 16 there. Yeah, this is going to be pretty good. This is going to be the only way to do it. You know what? We'll throw on Piercing Resolution as well, because why not? Yeah. So as we can see, we are getting an extra 700. Now we can get more than that. It's not too bad. And actually, why not? Well, let's not waste not, want not. So we're going to also be wanting to pay attention to when we get these little 3 attacks, like we have now. Oops, accidentally triggered Perils of the Warp. But that is going to give us more things to kill. Yeah. A whoopsie a daisy. Anyway, captive audience, blade dance. Oof. Yeah, so there's a lot of damage that Urlon's gonna take there. A lot of damage indeed. Anyway, should keep ourselves moving. Regen a little bit of health as well. And that'll be enough to then set off Daybreak. So yeah, 764 adding in extra. Oh, does it really want us to kill that one demonette? Okay. Now, as tempting as it would be, we have to remember not to trigger Inflame or even the Galvanize, because both of which will kill us because of the way we've sort of set up some of these pre-buffs. However, we can activate Reckless Abandon, and we can jump in on Daybreak Kill. So yeah, the damage that we're going to do is going to be pretty sweet here. But yeah, if we set up for a captive audience and then a blade dance, he's not going to survive. And yeah, those chunkins are just going to keep getting better and better and better. Just remember, yeah, piercing resolution, do not then inflame yourself because you will lose all of your armor against your own damage. Now let's have a little look at the Psy Capacitor. This is going to be the point where you are level 55, where the Psy Capacitor does start to get a little bit more fun, especially if you are using a lot of buffers. So mid-act 4 is going to be mostly when this builds online, and the main items that you're going to see difference is going to be Grimoire of the Void and obviously the Psy Focus. However, this setup's going to be much more about the melee weapons, and as you can see, because of the negative resolve, we are not going to be worrying too much about Malpian Shroud. Now, we will build up resolve anyway, but trust me, we don't need that shroud, and it is nice to not always have the same items on every build, so other allies do get a chance to use them. So I am going to get ready to set up for Daybreak, the same as I did last time. I will put the same sort of stuff in place. We'll even get these guys with the Warp Surge, sorry, the Warp Curse again. And because we don't set up, I can actually just go straight in for Finest Hour. We don't need to really worry about the other little bits. So first things first, I am going to give myself some more movement. I am going to give myself Reckless Abandon. And then I'm going to activate Piercing Resolution. So yeah, you'll see some pretty good damage actually. I will also inject myself. So yes, because of the extra stacks that we got coming in here, we'll see two little procs of warp coming in, one for the sword, and one for the Psy Focus. And yes, most of these guys, yeah, they're not going to survive a single hit really, because of all the little extras. And especially as we get the procs for the other things like Hand of Volius. So we're going to activate Death Waltz. So it will get all of our damage online, which will stack our highest amounts. Both of them went down in a single hit there. This only looks a little bit cleaner because I didn't mess up with the targeting myself with the Perils of the Warp. The area attacks look so nice on this. And this is why we go for those 1 AP area sweeps, so if there is multiple enemies, we can really use that. The only annoying part of this build is you don't really get the pieces to Act 3 and Act 4. And even if you did Psychic Awakening, again, it never quite feels worth it. So we're going to get ourselves into play here again. He gets hurt pretty bad by that. But then we're going to do the same as we did last time. We're going to activate our Captive Audience. We're going to Blade Dance. Oh, missed a hit there. But yes. Same as before, takes exceptional amounts of damage. Both builds perfectly viable, though I think the Pyromancer is a lot more fun. And it has a lot more AoE. This becomes very single focused, whereas I also feel like the Pyromancer version is a lot more self-sustained because of its own self-buffs, whereas this one, you're really going to want a party. Both builds viable. Do let me know which you plan on using, and I'll see you all in the next video.